We're coming at you live this time for 0 Point Reviews, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of classic and cult classic films. This time we got 1985's Weird Science.
Wyatt and Gary were a little unpopular, so they decided to do a little something about it.
She's alive! Alive!
I'm gonna show you guys the time of your life.
It was the biggest mistake they ever made, and the best thing that ever happened to them.
It's purely sexual.
Weird Science, rated PG-13. Starts
Now,
Friday at
Kevin,
select theaters.
When was your first memory of this before we get into the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably like waking up on my cousin's floor one morning and watching it on HBO. Like sleeping bags, cereal, laughter, cartoons, and then this, and you're just like, oh, what is this movie? And the music was like popping. Like that was the first time I'd ever heard Boingo before, I think. At least that I recall. Yeah, because it was long before Ghostbusters too. But man, such a fun movie. It was a cult thing even as a kid.
Oh my God, yeah, right. I seem to remember watching this like some TV edit versions and on VHS, basically. I never saw this in theaters. This was kind of out of my age range. I was like 7 at the time. So it kind of was very random on what I was actually like seeing, but I enjoyed catching this when I did. And of course, whenever it's on TV, I'd always watch it. Lost my VHS tape along the way, but I always had good memories with this one. I like to clump these in with like the other two big science movies of this era. We just did Real Genius, Weird Science, and next week we're doing My Science Project with Dennis Hopper in it.
You know what I pair this up with? I pair this up with things like Little Shop
Playboy?
of Horrors. Well, yeah. Speaking of pairing things up, if you look right down there, kids, there's a pair of things right down there. Miss Kelly LeBron.
Two very good things about this movie.
Yeah, you don't actually see them at all, but they're drawn in right down there. I didn't draw those, by the way.
They fill in very nicely.
God bless the 80s. I 0 pointed there. What the hell are we just saying?
Boobs.
Boobs.
A couple of boobs reviewing an old 80s movie. That's what we're doing.
Yes. But I mean, that was one. Oh, what I pair this up with? Boobs. So Little Shop of Horrors, Spaceballs would be another one that I would watch this with. And Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck would be the one that I'd pair this up with, probably the closest. And I know a bunch of people just went, click,
okay,
but hear me out. There's that evil, that science there that, not just, what's his name?
Evil Science.
The pederast guy, Jeffrey McCombs or whatever. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
There was one of the movies, it's like my parents would never let me rent because it was stupid. I'm like, but it's delightful.
Oh, okay. Well, nothing wrong with that. But Kevin, let's get into the good about Weird Science.
The good, well, we started talking about it. Miss Kelly LeBrock, she's the first good of this. Golly, what a just
the star of the movie,
is.
Everybody.
Yeah, like she is Mary Poppins with breasts, I believe she described herself as. She doesn't sing as pretty as Julie Andrews does, but she does pretty as Julie Andrews does. I tell you what, she was hysterical in this. Very, very straight-laced when it comes to delivering her jokes. Very good at being the straight-faced joker. She was delightful to watch. The kids were different. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, Kelly was very excellent in this movie. I remember her in this and a Steven Seagal movie. I think it's Hard to Kill, if I am not mistaken. and she was outstanding in both of them, but I like her more in this role. And what's really good about her acting and portrayal in this particular movie is um, I really like how she plays a very good role in getting these guys to come out of their shells. And also, she shows a strength and intelligence to her that, of course, Wyatt put that in her, gave her the brain of Albert Einstein. So she's wise beyond her years and super powered, super beautiful. But she actually uses her mind quite often in this, despite having magic at her fingertips. And one of my favorite parts about the movie is in the one of the main climaxes of this movie, she's not even in the scene at all. She's not standing in the background, but you feel her presence like cheering on these guys from wherever she is in the house or the room. But when you see the cameras working around and they're standing up to these Mad Max type characters, she's not there, but you feel as the audience, you're right with her, like, yeah, boys, you tell them.
Yeah,
That's
it's almost
awesome.
like she's part of the crowd eating and drinking at the same time while watching. You go, that's my boys. She was just wonderful. And
Absolutely.
I didn't get to tell you, this was the first time, I think, in 2 years that my wife has actually sat and watched a movie with me for the show. And when it got to that part, she was like, she's going to set them up, because she'd remembered Weird Science completely differently. Like this was a coming of age sort of story, like Getting Some sort of story, like American Pie was. And I told her, I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, I don't, it's really kind of ambiguous whether or not they get laid or not, but they most certainly don't with her. And I even explained to her, I'm like, she's not a sex toy for them at all, because she thought she was. She's like,
No.
when she kisses Wyatt, she's like, oh, and she's gonna go kiss the other guy next and go get with him. I'm like, no, not at all. Just wait and see. Just wait and see. It's really cute. And she didn't.
Well, yeah, they
believe
actually
me.
explained that later with they actually explained that later with Wyatt, where he basically admits to Deb, like, he loves her, but it's more of a brother-sister kind of relationship. It's like once Lisa was in front of him, it's like he completely understood she's beautiful, but she's not really my type. And
Yeah.
that's okay. He immediately felt like this is big sister to me now, as opposed to, Gary, who's more about like, hey, I'm in love with Lisa, but she's a little too much for me.
She's a bit old.
Because he only lasted 10 seconds. The rest of us would last 38.
At best. 38.
At best.
I love where he grabbed her, or where she grabs his butt. His face is like, whoo! My face just kind of went, yeah.
Yeah, right.
You go,
Jackpot.
boy. Kinda.
Well, it's
like, you don't grab my
funny.
butt like that.
It's super funny when we get to the one of our other segments. I'll bring up another point about Gary and Lisa. So, as kids, we rooted on, but as adults, some things just don't age very well.
Well,
leave it at that. Swing.
My old English teacher had philosophies about that, and he wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right neither. Guys get in a lot more trouble than girls would have gotten in. At that point, this was long before Mary Kay Letourneau, is all I'm going to say.
True.
But yes, once you get past that point, like there's Lisa is what I like to call persona non nookie. And if you can understand that, and which my wife quickly did, it's very well defined in this movie. Like, she's their genie. She is their Mary Poppins. She's not a sex toy. She's not, this is nothing like American Pie. She's trying to get them to stop being little boys and start being big boys. Not even men, just big boys. Go be big boys and go have fun, because you're missing out on life. And that's all she wants them to do.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the tale with this movie, is these two guys are so like high strung, stressed out, typical teenage, behavior. Like most of us went through this when we were going through high school too, where it's like you just want to be with a girl or whoever you want to be with, but you're overly stressed about it. You don't know how to talk to them. You don't know how to do anything. You never stand up for yourself. So it's a very good character arc in this movie. And it's something like most people can relate to of you like somebody, you can't just go up and talk to them. Actually, that is how this works. You go up and you talk to them. But when we're at this age, we're still figuring that out. So this movie really captured like that kind of feeling of high school. And now I know, like, this director has done so many freaking high school movies. This is the only one I can tolerate. And I actually really, really like this movie. And I think it's his best movie. Everybody will talk about, all the other ones. We're not doing that here. But as far as I'm concerned, I really enjoy the character arcs, especially for Wyatt. Like, he's ready to do more, but he needs that push. And when Lisa's like telling his parents, like, I'm going to take him to a party where there's going to be lots of drugs and sex and kids running around in their underwear, and mom and dad are just flipping out, and she's like, and you wonder why he wanks off in the bathroom. And then it goes completely crazy. No, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. Then she pulls a gun on the dad and she's like, I'm taking him to a party now. And then later on, when you get to the party and Wyatt, he basically, I have clips when we do this video again coming up soon. At the end of the video, I'll explain what we're doing here because we're live for once on this. But I really like when Wyatt goes, shut up, bitch. And then he goes on this rant with the Mad Max guys, which I think is completely funny, but it drops a gamer word in there, or I would actually say what he said. But he's like, you take your dumb ass and your gamer friends and get out of here, quote unquote. And you can fill in the blank because it rhymes with maggot.
Yes. Sounds like something Sergeant Slaughter would say. But yeah. My wife pointed out at that point, because the first thing he says is, shut up, bitch, to the woman. She's like, you know what? And she was almost applauding. She's like, this is one of those times where it's like he tells a woman to shut the fuck up and you're applauding. Like the first person he tells to shut the fuck up is a woman and you're applauding. I'm like, it's happenstance. She was the first person there. She was the first person that opened her mouth.
Well, and she was also like giggling and laughing with her crony buddies. And so it's like, he's just looking at, when you watch the movie back, he actually glances at her like a couple times, like, all right, once we get started on this tangent, you're first, bitch. I really like that. And Gary has a very similar arc, but he's a little more sheltered. He takes a lot more taking to get him out of his shell, especially with Big Brother Chet, who I would call one of the other good parts of this movie. He was outstanding as a complete douche of a brother.
I would put Chet in a list of the top 10, at least top 10 villains of the 80s. Seriously, like Chet is one of the most memorable villains of the 1980s movies. Sure, it's a comedy, but like no one was more sinister, dastardly, hateful, and completely irredeemable as Chet. He was a severe and utter literal piece of shit. God rest his soul, Bill Paxton. The best.
On current events, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.
Love him so much.
He has played so many wonderful roles, and then you forget that he was actually in a movie like this.
Never, ever, ever. I look at all the wonderful roles he did, things like Frailty, and I'm like, yeah, but he's still Chet. You look at his arc that he had on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Silly show, but he did a wonderful job. But he's still Chet to me. Like, God damn, he's that scary big brother.
God, he's so good. I enjoy him. A lot of the cast in this movie is top notch. I really enjoy everybody from, you know, Judy Aronson, who plays Hilly, Susan Snyder, who played Deb, Robert Downey Jr., very young Robert Downey Jr., being all flamboyant with his girls. And he's a fun one to watch in this. It kind of makes you think, like, wow, this is a really young Iron Man right here. But you don't know he's ever going to get to that level when he's playing a bit part in like a movie like this.
Oh, I don't know, man. If you watch things like this, and like we were talking about it the other day, I think on Saturday on the live stream, we were talking about the triple Lindy, Back to School. Like he's so goddamn funny, so smart and witty. You have to figure someone like him and Anthony Michael Hall, they were going to fucking go places in life. They have. They're amazing actors. Like, regardless of how many awards they win, the amount of movies that they've been in and the roles that they've had that have moved you and made you laugh are insurmountable. They're amazing actors.
Absolutely. And even Anthony Michael Hall would later go on to do like a really good TV show called The Dead Zone, which was a Stephen King adaptation. And I really enjoyed that show. Now, it kind of didn't land the best, but I did enjoy it because it also starred Nicole DeBoer in that movie. And I have a sweet spot for her. She's absolutely stunning too for another beautiful woman, being a strong character in another TV show / movie. So, and, you know, I will reserve my judgment on Halloween Kills, especially as it pertains to Anthony Michael Hall.
He was okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
He did great for the lines he was given and what he was told to do. He was great.
Evil
it was better
dies
than
tonight. Evil dies tonight.
Come on, y'all, start clapping
But,
your hands
you
with
know,
it.
that being said, you know, there's not much of a soundtrack for this movie. So any of you are looking for points on like how's the soundtrack on this? It's a one tune hit for this movie. It's basically Weird Science. So big shot.
That depends upon the version that you have. Apparently, most copies are just Weird Science, but apparently, and I don't know if this is going to show up on the green screen. Not really. The DVD, the regular ass DVD, when they're in the mall, and Ian and Max, they see Lisa on the escalator. They're playing "Pretty Woman" by Van Halen. So you're kind of like, oh, far out, man.
Oh, I did hear that on the version I was watching.
Yeah, but otherwise, you are 110% correct. It's pretty much like Weird Science, which I will never balk at. Like Oingo Boingo is my favorite band of all time. Like them and Pink Floyd. And
yeah, it's a perfect capsule of like the 80s as far as I'm concerned. Now, how'd you feel about like the movie overall? Did you have a good fun time? Like basically we're 10 minutes in the movie and they've already made Lisa. So the movie moves pretty freaking fast.
It really does. And there's no substance to this movie at all. At all. No. Like there's not a lot to chew on. He wrote this movie in a night. He wrote it overnight because the studio was like, hey, you know what? If you want to make The Breakfast Club, we'll let you do that, but we need you to make this movie too. And they wanted him to do it at the same time. And he was 120% committed to The Breakfast Club. Anthony Michael Hall, he was helping him with this. He gave him the lead role in this. He backed out of not Christmas Vacation, I think European Vacation to do this.
Okay.
It was kind of a big deal, not the movie itself, but that the movie got done. So everything was very fast and very cheap. So for as much as you love this movie and as good as this movie really is, there's not much to it. but you're going to sit there for 90 minutes and you're going to like snap your fingers at the music. You're going to laugh your ass off at the awkwardness of the jokes. You're going to giggle your ass off at the awkwardness of the fucking racist ass jokes, because we haven't gotten to those yet. Anthony Michael Hall deserved a fucking award for this movie, just not getting his ass beat.
Hey, if they had MTV Movie Awards back then, this movie would have stolen like at least 2 of them.
He was so inspirational to me as a kid to be able to like change his character and his voice. And I didn't understand as a kid necessarily that he was totally drunk, but I got that he was fitting in with these guys and able to like change his character. And it was very inspirational to me as a kid, and I was able to do that growing up. And this was one of those things that affected me, and I'll always love it. And there are movies that you watch as a kid and you're like, oh, this is really stupid, but it's age appropriate. You grow out of it. This might be one of those things, but I've not grown out of it. I haven't watched it in many years, but goodness, and my wife may have rolled her eyes at me a couple times. I didn't stop laughing almost the entire time. It's awkward, but even when it's awkward, you're laughing. Like, there's a 5-minute moment where they're having a conversation while one of the boys is taking a shit. And it's really awkward.
Yeah. And then they were lighting matches and candles and everything before the girls came in. Oh no, we got women and you're dropping a deuce.
Like, it's all things you could relate to. And John Hughes did this thing within his movies that Deadpool does now, and everyone thinks it's amazing, and it is, where they turn and look at the camera. Like, next thing you know, I'll be wearing bras on my head and going back to having a conversation with Chet.
I counted 2 looks at the screen, but they were always super brief, and unless you're paying attention, you don't catch it.
Yeah, and it's like, that was one of those things that kind of laid into my humor growing up, and it never gets old. And I think that's one of the things that makes me love movies like Deadpool so much, is that fourth wall breaking. Like, hey, you get the joke. Like, it's a fun way of storytelling.
Absolutely. Now, before we get moving on to any other points, gotta ask you, Deb and Hilly, did you like how they ended up with Wyatt and Gary at the end?
Yeah,
did you feel like that was satisfying?
It was because they got, I don't want to say their reward, for lack of a better term, they got their girls, they got their kiss, they got their ability to step out of the bathroom, even though they met the girls in the bathroom with a big old stinky deuce. But it was satisfying to see, like, even watching Anthony drive the girl home, the the cop chase, like
the Ferrari.
Totally stupid. And I'm laughing, and my wife's like, why are you laughing now? I'm like, because this is completely unrealistic. Like, this would not happen now. And then she starts laughing because her dad figured that out quite a few times. Like, you can't get away from the cops. If you make them angry, they're going to find you. Like, they may not catch you right then, but they're still going to find you. No. So, I mean, that was funny.
Yep, absolutely.
I really dug it. The fucking
I really
hitting both him and the girl in the head with the shotgun was a bit much. I was like, God damn.
Yeah, when we get to the bad, that's going to be one of my things, is like, some stuff just does not age well. But as a kid, you just kind of roll with it, because if you really hit somebody like that with a shotgun, it would leave a mark, and it would hurt a lot more than that. But just to cycle back around, I really like how they end up with the girls, because they set it up in the beginning, and there's a few hints here and there, and then they just get right to it. So, and they have great chemistry between the pairings, and I think it works out very well. And, when you get to the TV show that was based off of this movie, they actually get more into the relationships with everybody and everything. And I really enjoy that show. That might be something we can cover if we can find a way to watch it somewhere.
I don't know. It's a TNT cancellation.
I gotta look. Yeah.
And I want to say it was 3
It
seasons.
lasted a couple seasons, but yeah, Vanessa Angel was a pretty
Mhm.
decent substitute for Kelly LeBrock, but Kelly is queen in my book. So
I think so too, but golly, Vanessa did grow on you fast. I only saw a handful of episodes, and she was really enjoyable to watch. Like I don't remember the other
stunning.
guys at all, but yeah, Vanessa was so good that when I looked up pictures, I put in Weird Science Vanessa instead of Lisa. I'm like, but I thought her name was oh, that's the actress's name.
Mm-hmm.
Kev's not
Yep,
always this smart.
Lisa. Nah, but unless you got something else you want to get into the bad.
Oh, we could talk about badness, I suppose. Again, a movie's only as good as its
Robert,
bad guys. Makeup. He was the king of eyeliner back in the 80s. He really was. Like, I don't think he was legitimately punk, but he was always able to pull off punk in movies really well.
Yeah, I would agree. And I love his American flag pin there. I was like, early Iron Man reference. Tie-in. He's gonna get there one day.
Spoiler, it's a bug for Hydra. Couldn't even think of the damn name.
When we're talking about Robert Downey Jr., all I gotta think is something from Real Genius.
Can you hammer a 6-inch spike through a board with your penis?
Not right now.
A girl's gotta have her standards.
I bet you he can. Iron Man.
I bet you he can. Bring in the hammer.
Clang. But so we started talking about it. For me, my bad is there's not a lot of substance to it. And so in a way, do you want to chew on a bit more of the movie? Because this is kind of a take on Frankenstein. But it gets rid of all the bullshit. So it's not that terrible for me. It's just there's not a lot to it. It's, hey, we made a girl out of nothing. We used computers. How did it work? It just does. Okay. Like there's no explanation.
And then they try it a second time. And what did they forget, Kevin? They forgot the doll. They hooked up a missile.
Time magazine with
and
the
the
nuke on it.
rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
So that scene where the rocket was coming up from the ground cost about $100,000 to film. And they only had one shot at it. And Anthony Michael Hall farted when they called action. And everyone freaked out and started laughing at the same time. So they had to edit the take because they couldn't redo it.
Oh.
Chef kiss.
Oh, that's chef's kiss, or whatever you want to call it.
From a jerk point of view, I'm like, that's a wonderful fart. That's a blessing fart. It cost $100,000.
They could have spent more money on giving Kelly LeBrock a swimsuit or something, maybe.
Oh, golly, I don't know, man. That ending scene where she's the gym coach. I probably would have been one of those kids passing out. Hubba, hubba.
Yep, me too.
But bad.
Although
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know we're on a delay, everybody. It's internet or StreamYard screwing us around, so apologizes for the talking over, everybody. But I was just gonna say, like, one part that's a bit too cheesy for me is that part where they slap their heads and then fall to the ground. It just would have made more sense that they just fell to the ground. They didn't have to smack their heads and just all drop. But,
yeah. Well, again, therein lies part of the problem with John Hughes movies. Problem and charm is cheesiness. It's all intentional. So, I mean, if it's your thing, it works out great. I never liked his movies growing up as a kid because I like somewhat more realistic things. I was always a horror fan. Sure, the final girl is always a teenager, but watching all the teenagers in movies who always get like always get one over on the adults, and they're always wittier than the adults. It's like that got old even as a kid. Like, show somebody getting
Yeah.
fucked up, please.
Well, yeah, even like Ferris Bueller by comparison, it's like I like the movie. I can never watch that movie as an adult. The last time I watched it was like maybe 15 years ago. It just irritated me the whole time. And I'm not saying
Yes.
it's not a good movie. I can't hack that kind of style movie. I didn't even like it that much as a kid. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd play it if it was on for a few special scenes, but that's about it. As opposed to like this movie with Weird Science. If this is on TV and I stumble across it, I'm parking it and I'm watching it. I
Yes.
actually own this in the collection. I got a very nice Arrow Blu-ray. Outstanding. I love the slipcover on it. It's really good. Wish I had it, but I'm not home with my collection. But you know, I was watching this off of a YouTube rental, and the picture quality was decent. Had no issues. Super fun. So, but to your point, though, I'm not a John Hughes fan, and the plot really isn't much for this movie. It's pretty simple, and I think that plays to a really good strength of this movie is rely on your cast, rely on the antics and all the crazy and zaniness, and just let the movie take you. It's a sci-fi wonder, and it just works somehow. Like the magic of like 80s movies like this, where you take a stupid concept, you hammer out a script in one night, you get a good cast together, and you go. These days, you can't even do half of that shit because no, you got to go through a process to cast. You have to rewrite that script at least 7 times before it gets approved by somebody, and then it's lost its charm by the time it gets to that point. And then you probably lost a director, and then you got somebody else doing this, and it turns out to be some horrible shit ass movie. So as weak as the script is on this, at least the dialogue was fun, and the situational comedy that they wrote in there all worked, and it played exceedingly well.
How much was the budget for this? Budget
Ooh,
$7.5 million. They gave John Hughes.
Didn't it make like 35 at the box office?
38, yeah, almost 39.
Oh, 38.
Yeah.
I was close. I was not even looking it up. I'm like, I think it was like 35.
Yeah, so I mean, it did well. It did pretty well for its time, actually. But they gave him $7.5 million in good faith, not necessarily knowing what it was, just said, we need a picture. It's Weird Science. It's this old magazine based on one of the stories. Go. If you want the money for this, do this at the same time. Here's the money, go.
Yeah,
and
Murray.
he made some amazing shit. But again, studios don't make movies like that anymore. There's no faith. It's studio heads. Well, studios don't make movies for movie makers, movie watchers. We've talked about it so many times. They're all run by marketing committees, focus groups, all sorts of shit. There is check criteria things of people, characters, or whatever the hell else that need to be in certain IP franchises now, like just to make it work. It doesn't have to be good. Just have these things in there. Give it a Wookiee. Talking to you, Acolyte. Give it a Wookiee with a lightsaber. Wookiee with the lightsaber. Sorry, I'm still sore about that shit. For as much as I could bag on John Hughes, made so many good movies for people, made so much money for these studios, and it was a good time for movies. We don't get shit like that anymore. So regardless of how bad and cheesy it could be at certain points, because it's only a 6.4. The TV show is rated 6.6. It's actually rated higher than this. You're not going to get a better time with a movie. A comedy made today is not going to be as sincere and fun as this. It'll have dick and fart jokes.
Right.
Pushed dick and fart jokes, like really forced. More swearing. I granted this had plenty of it, but the sincerity is not there. It's so bubblegum and prepackaged and reworked, re-edited. Directors have hardly any control over what they're fucking doing anymore. And John Hughes had total control over this shit. And his cast worked with his cast to get ideas on how to make the characters better, how to make the story better, and it just worked out wonderfully. God, we're talking about bad stuff,
Absolutely.
though,
Yeah, but we're still there. And while we're thinking about that, one thing I will kind of point out, and I don't have specific examples, but there are some scenes where it feels like something got cut. Like there's definitely some deleted scenes out there because from time to time, like, Gary and Wyatt walk into a room and they didn't know where Lisa was, and she's suddenly right there. And it feels like
Yes.
we missed like a scene where they're walking through something to get there. And so from time to time throughout this movie, there's like 3 or 4 times. And like I said, I wish I had perfect examples of this, but it's something I was noticing is like, it feels like there's a scene that was cut here. And that's usually the case because in the 80s and even the 90s, those kind of cuts are so obvious whenever you watch a movie. It's like, what happened? Why are we here? And how did that person get all the way over there? And wait, what just happened? They walked away from something in the other room and you don't know what the hell just happened. So,
Yeah.
and dialogue that doesn't quite match up with what's going on. So, unfortunately, I would like to see like a more uncut version of this movie, but who knows? Maybe they were cutting out stuff that was just kind of stupid and was hurting the pacing of the movie. It's just something I noticed. I don't really like seeing that, but I know with an 80s and a 90s movie, that's par for the course. That's just the way it happened. And we'll probably never see that kind of footage.
Yeah, because it gets lost. Even if it's not destroyed
Or
right then and there.
destroyed.
Yeah, it decomposes
Yeah.
over time and gets lost. So you're probably very right. One example I could
Yeah.
think of that you're talking about is where they come home from the bar and they've got to get past Chet. They have to get past Chet twice. Like the first time he doesn't have Anthony. The second time he's got Anthony coming up the stairs and he's like, well, the Blues Hounds return. It's like, but
Thank you. Yep.
you just beat his ass. And my wife's like, I think you're right. They did do 2 edits for that and they forgot. I'm like, I
Yep.
told you, it's not just me.
I knew one involved Chet. I couldn't quite remember because I watched this a couple of days ago. So,
And then probably this scene here on the bed where they're talking to Lisa and she's waiting for the boys to come get her in the Porsche.
Yep.
Was it a Porsche?
Yeah,
the
that was
Blackbird.
the Porsche 927, I believe. Because they had the Porsche and then they had the Ferrari. I wasn't sure what the model of the Ferrari was, but I know that model Porsche because I always wanted one.
Yeah,
But
bastards.
no money. Not happening.
Oh, but I 0 pointed again. I got
Anything
0
else
pointed on it.
bad about this movie, Kevin?
Bad. The stereotype of the old
Or do we
people.
want to hit the ugly? No.
The only
yeah.
thing I can complain about is the stereotype of the old people, the grandparents. I'm afraid we're not going to
The old
improve.
English grandparents.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now we've gotten the stereotypes. Here we are. So that's part of those things that you get it, but you really had to be there to get it. Like you had to be part of that 80s genre. Like I don't know that my kids would understand that joke today. So anyway,
Yeah, that did feel a bit out of place.
but that was it as far as the bad. Again, there's not much that I can gripe and complain about with this movie. The ugly.
The ugly.
Some of the editing, like you said, there was a group called the Weenies that I think they might have been in the mall and at the party. I don't recall seeing them, but I think they were at the beginning in the gym, at the mall, and then at the party. almost like
Okay.
oh God, what was his name? King Video and his Paquettes, something to that effect. There
Oh,
was a club
Vidiot.
called the
Vidiot.
Vedettes. Yeah, King Vidiot. Um. Anyway, I want to see that movie again so bad. Uh, there was a club like them that had several scenes that were cut out that I'd read about. And I was kind of like, well, gosh, that's another one of those 80s things. It's like the clubs, the cliques, the gangs. That was so fun. I remember that. That wasn't like a gang whooping your ass. Like that would have been fun to see again. So the things that got cut and lost from this movie, the outtakes, things like that, I would have loved to have seen. I only have the
Yeah.
DVD, so I don't know what your transfer looks like. Mine looks like it was transferred just better than VHS. It is better than VHS,
Yeah.
but golly, I
Oh yeah, my copy is pretty good. It's been a little while since I've watched it. I basically watched it the first time I got it. Looked great, but I actually don't remember what the special features were. I just watched the movie and I'm like, that was awesome, and I put it back on the shelf. So, but to your point, the ugly part of losing the footage and never finding it again, absolutely, that's ugly. I call it bad as far as like it not being in the movie and not them preserving it, but the more I think about it, more that is an ugly thing.
yeah, Hollywood. It was never about art. Never necessarily about art. It's always been about money. I mean, it's the picture business. So and again, at that point, they didn't think about things like special features, bonus edits, and cuts like that. It was just getting that picture out on the big screen. Home video was just starting to be a thing. In 1985, it really wasn't there yet. Like a
Right.
home
No,
home video
that's spot on.
rental thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like there was no, oh shit, Weird Science came out, I'm gonna go buy that this week. Mm-mm. The DVD for this didn't come out until well into the 2000s.
Yeah, and then it had a horrible transfer, and then it kept getting re-released with the same transfer. Then they would do a DNR pass on the Blu-ray, which made it look even worse. Then finally Arrow got a hold of it and they gave it a proper transfer years later. And that's where we're at now. Now it's finally in a decent shape, and at least we can all enjoy it in a better condition and better format now.
Yeah, and with someplace like Arrow, or with a publisher like Arrow, you're really getting what you pay
Love
for. I mean,
Arrow.
it is a little, it's about $10 more expensive than most Blu-rays, but you get a lot for what you pay for.
So worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for anybody checking out our review, we will have an Amazon affiliate link down below in the description. So if you do want to pick up a copy of that, please click that link down below. It helps keep the cents flying around over here. Common
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I don't know about all that. And
We
you
need a
know,
few drinks for that to start kicking in.
that's true. The other part of the ugly, and I guess this coincides with what you said, is it was a long time before I'd seen this, in between the VHS years and getting to sit and watch it on DVD. And even then, you don't see this streaming very often. It's very cult. And I like that in its way because it's got that special place in your heart. But this is still one of those movies where it's like, it's based on Frankenstein. Frankenstein is one of those timeless classics. You could tell the story again and again and again to new generations and still have it be fun. It doesn't have the greatest soundtrack, but it is a fun movie. And the song that it does have are dope as fuck. And again, timeless. My kids love the song. They've never actually sat and watched the movie, but they're very familiar with the song.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially with this movie. When it came out, the cult following that it has even today may not be the big John Hughes film that everybody talks about, but it is the best, in my opinion. Now, Kevin,
Yeah.
final judgment time.
We'll give it the final judgment. Golly.
Home.
I don't know if I could say this is the echelon A+ for 80s, but this is when it comes to like your teenager party type movie. This is my favorite. It makes everything of the 80s that was silly, fun, and cool. It wasn't over the top. Yes, it involves magic. There's no explanation for any of the weird science happening in this show, but you just take it for what it is. They hack the Pentagon and get so much power necessary that it creates a being from raw energy.
Let's go into cyberspace. Warp 10, Sulu.
Just go into this shit with complete disbelief. There's no reality to it. Go have fun, smile, laugh. Remember what it's like to be a kid and laugh. This is so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I enjoy it all the time. On a 10-point scale, I'm probably going to give this probably a 7.5 for being completely fair. I
Yeah.
think that's a pretty good range for it. I'm taking points off just because of this, that, and the other, largely due to like the story. It could have been a little bit better. It could have been a little bit better edited. And yeah, just overall enjoyment factor. Fun movie, 7.5. And Kelly Urbach gets a full point all by herself, so I'll bump it up to an 8.5 just for her.
I'll take that. And I was going to add Michael Berryman into that as well because he adds credibility to everything that he's in. So I don't want to lose my teaching
But
position.
he still has his day job he gets to keep, Kevin.
I never caught that before. It killed me today. I'd hate to lose my teaching position.
I know, I never did either. You really do have a lovely home.
So, but if you've never seen this before, prepare yourself for a few words that do not age well. They're not nice words. They shouldn't be said. It gets a bit racist.
Yeah.
In a way,
At
but
times.
it's also very funny because Anthony Michael Hall is pretending to be very black with a group of black men in a blues bar. And it's the funniest shit you've ever seen because he doesn't stop. Even into the next fucking scene, he doesn't stop talking about the bitch with them big titties. You know, the bitch with them big titties. You can't talk about the bitch without them big titties and have her kick you in the balls. It's like he went on for like 10 fucking minutes in 2 scenes.
I was crazy about this chick. The chick was nuts for me, man. And she kicked me in the balls.
And she had them big titties.
Yeah.
And the guys listening were so fucking in tune. No, man.
Well, it's funny. He starts off with, it was his 8th grader. And I'm like, oh no. And the guys are just like nodding their head at like, yep. So some things do not age well.
They're 15 getting fucked up in a blues bar.
Hey, at least he could hang with them for a minute.
And drinking bourbon.
Hey, but at least Gary got kissed by an older woman, and he's supposed to be 15.
That's true. Doesn't even have his permit.
Nope.
But anyway.
All right, Kevin, let's say goodbye to everybody.
This is a Gold Plus standard. Go watch it. If you've never seen it, watch it. If you don't watch it and you've seen it every once in a while, go buy it. Totally worth it. And again, that Arrow Blu-ray, totally worth the money.
Absolutely, totally worth the money. And absolutely, thank you everybody for tuning in to 0 Point Reviews, 1985's Weird Science. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hit that like button down below. Comment, got any favorite memories, thoughts, scenes about this movie? Don't like this movie? Tell us which John Hughes you really don't like. We want to hear it down below. Also, hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification. We'll see you all on the next one. And goodbye, everybody. We got Weird Science.
Sorry.
Why don't you shut up, bitch?